Welcome to Living from the Heart. I am your host, Tina Thrussell, co-founder of Best You Can Be and messenger of the Shin Dao, the way of the heart. I am delighted today to have Sharon McRill on the show with me. Sharon is the co-founder, or the founder. I have this tendency to say co-founder because my husband and I are co-founders of Best You Can Be in the Shin Dao, the way of the heart. But Sharon is the founder of the Betty Brigade, and she is passionate about helping people eliminate the clutter and feel more organized and on board with their lives. And she is the author of a brilliant book called Downsizing the Silver Tsunami. And her passion for helping people is what caused me to want to invite her to be on this show, because if you've been with us and watched previous episodes, you know that living from the heart is about living with passion and purpose. And Sharon certainly does that. So without further ado, excuse me, I bring onto the show Sharon McRill. Hello, Sharon.
Hello.
Thank you for agreeing to be here today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's you're in Florida where it's wonderfully warm. I'm here in Canada where it's wonderfully cold.
Well, I'm actually from Michigan, so I'm just down in Florida being a caregiver for my mom.
Yeah, speaking of that silver tsunami, there is a sort of a little mini tsunami going on in your own life as you're caring for your mother, right?
Oh, yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah. And as we have more and more baby boomers getting into that age, we get into that part of life where we flip from being the child to the parent of our parents in a lot of ways because the caregiving role reverses. And
It certainly does.
yeah, yeah.
And
And
there's resistance from the parents. Like the
mm,
parents do not want to become that, they don't want to step into that, well, I need help.
yes, yes, there is I'm sure all of us can understand and relate. We all want to be independent. We all want to be able to do our thing and live our lives. And when our health comes to a point where we need some assistance, it's like admitting that we need some assistance is like admitting that we're giving up our independence, I think, somehow. And yet there's got to be another way to look at that
Mm-hmm.
so that it's not such a difficult time. And do you help people negotiate looking at things differently so that
Absolutely. There's lots of different ways. So I would say probably more than half of our clients come to us when they're in crisis. There has been a stroke, a heart attack, a death. Something has happened that is facilitating a move, and so that's when it's the most stressful. And so when those kind of things happen, it's very, very challenging. But I would say probably about 30% of our clients are actually planners, and so they are able to really kind of negotiate where their stuff goes,
hmm,
how it goes to other family members or doesn't, and what gets sold, what doesn't get sold, and how all that works. And the interesting thing is that um, the more you plan, the more money you can put back in your pocket.
ah, that's a unexpected bonus that I didn't expect you to say.
Yeah.
So I guess that makes sense because when we have to do everything last minute, there's no time to shop around and get the best prices, scenarios. What other ways are you actually saving people money by pre-planning this
Well,
downtime?
one of the interesting things, so a lot of folks don't think about it from this perspective. So as the baby boomers are aging, more and more stuff is coming onto the marketplace, and there is this glut of stuff. And
Mm,
so what is happening with the stuff is that there are less and less places for it to go. So And as we know, millennials don't really like stuff. They like experiences. They want to go do things. They want to go and take trips and have adventures. And so they are not interested in grandma's china. That just doesn't even come into their world.
Right.
So the more folks start planning and saying, okay, I want to sell this thing and I want to sell that thing, and I want this, and this to go to family members, all of that can be negotiated early so that there isn't a scramble, so that there isn't these tight timelines where you have to pay premiums or that there is nowhere for the stuff to go, because when the more you plan, the more places you can look for it to go, because consignment dealers also are filling up and estate sale companies book out. So we're in February right now, right? And um, where I'm from in Michigan, the real estate spring season starts in February. Now,
Ah,
most people don't think of moving in February because there's still a lot of snow on the ground in the north. However, people are prepping their homes for spring sale.
mm,
So, so estate sale companies right now are planning their March, April, May, and so if you call them in June and say, I'd like to have an estate sale next week, they will laugh you off the phone. They will
ah,
just say, you're crazy because we're booked out 2 months.
oh, wow. Yeah.
So then you have to make choices that if you're closing on your house and you have to be out by a certain date because the new buyer is moving in, you have to make choices that maybe you didn't want to make. You may have to donate more things than you necessarily had planned on, because the stuff has to be gone. It has to be moved in order for you to sell your home.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can see where what you do with the Betty Brigade really does bring more ease and grace into people's lives by helping them plan this further ahead of time so that you're not in that last minute scramble and you can honor your heart's desires, the wishes
Hmm.
of what to do with things.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so much more ease.
And that being said, honoring your heart's desire. So we also do work with hoarders. And so sometimes, hoarders want to keep everything, and that's not even realistic.
Yeah.
They're moving from a 5-bedroom house that is packed to the gills, and they're moving into say a 700 square foot apartment. Well,
Mm,
you can't take a 5-bedroom house and put it in a 700 square foot apartment. That's just not going to work. Um, and so, having to negotiate what goes and what stays and what can be stored and what shouldn't be stored, and all of those things all come up on a regular basis for us.
wow. And so how do you deal with that? I mean, 'cause
That's the trick, right?
yeah. Yeah, 'cause that's a big deal. That's there's huge emotional issues, there's huge emotional attachment to that stuff. So,
Right.
do you teach people about the letting go process or what?
Yes, it's a grieving process. It's actually a grieving of their past life. And you can be grateful for the things that you've had and let them go to a new home. So that's one way of grieving them.
Mhm.
Another way is to be sad about it the rest of your life, which doesn't really serve, but a lot of people do that. And are uh, some people just say, let it all go. I don't need any of this, and they only keep the stuff that is most important to them. So teaching people that stuff is not it is not the memory. So the
Mm,
memory stays in your heart. The memory is something that you carry in your brain. It's not a piece of furniture. It's not a dish. It's not a photo. That's not the memory. The memory is inside you.
yeah. And speaking of photo, do you go the photo route to help people transition? Like, Take pictures of the things you're going to get rid of. At least you can take a look at those pictures, and you don't have to have the physical item taking up space, which of course is important when you're
Right.
really minimizing.
Right. Sometimes we do photos, and sometimes there's not time, because we're in a time constraint, and so taking photos of everything in the house would add significant additional time
Right.
to what we're doing, and sometimes we're able to find solutions that families hadn't even considered. So here is. Here's one of the things that comes up regularly is we were working with a family, and there
I'm
were.
going to tell the story. I just want to, Lynn just commented, like, stuff is the memory so good. She likes this way of looking at things. So yeah, thank you for that, Sharon.
So we were working with this family that had 9 beneficiaries. Okay, so that's a lot of beneficiaries.
Yeah.
And they were all over the world. There were 3 in Israel, there were 2 in California, and then the rest were kind of scattered around the US. And so they all wanted, their aunt passed away, and she decided that, and she was wealthy, and she decided that she wanted to gift them all whatever they wanted out of her house. And they all wanted her cookbook,
Uh-oh.
because that was one of the big memories that they had. Well, so one of the things that we did, and then they were also fighting over some photographs, like family photographs and things like that. So we were able to connect with um, a company that copied all of the photographs and uploaded them into a special album, so that the family could get to the photos whenever they wanted. But we also were able to scan in the cookbook. And so each family member got their own copy of her cookbook. And so there are technology can be a pain in the rear, and it can also help us, and it can help us move in ways that create a cooperative environment, so that the family isn't fighting over something silly that will enhance all of their lives.
And I think what a gift, the service that you're providing, because I have seen families be ripped apart by little stuff like this. It's just little stuff, but people at the time of death, when there isn't a lot of preparation, get a little silly. And excuse me, I've seen people like literally tear families apart over the simplest things.
Yeah,
And
and I've seen that too, Tina, and
yeah,
it's very sad.
it is. And yet here you are, as a neutral third party, you can think of things like this. Well, it's simple. Let's scan the cookbook. Everybody gets their own copy. Everybody's happy.
Right.
You need somebody who's got a calm detachment from what's going on emotionally in order to be able to see those kinds of solutions.
Right.
So
In that same family, one of the things, there was an extensive collection of books that were there was some rare Judaica books within this collection, and it was a really interesting collection. And so the whole family was not traveling to this house to take a look at all the books. So one of the things we did was through we made a video and slowly scanned all of the spines of all of the books, and said, okay, this is on this shelf and this is on this shelf, so that the family members could tell us, I want the red book on this shelf in this part of the house. And so it was really great to be able to come up with a solution, so that everyone didn't have to travel to this house that was very far away from them to get what they needed. And then we shipped all of those items to the family members.
Oh, how beautiful. Yeah. So nice. So nice.
Yeah.
So how did you come to doing this? Like, what was it? What was it that said, I want to help people this way?
Well, I used to work in corporate life, and I did project management for a corporation. And so I took my project management skills and I applied it to a residential model, because I did get downsized from my corporate job. Me and 70 people got let go all at once.
Wow.
And This was almost 20 years ago. It feels like ancient history. And so I made a list of what I knew how to do and what I was good at. So those are two different lists, what you know how to do and what you're good at.
Yeah.
And so where those lists crossed, that's kind of how Betty Brigade came about. And where we are today is not where we started. Where we started was just me at my dining room table. I now have a crew of 15. I have an operations manager and an office manager, and we have a handyman division, and we're growing. We're stepping into a national arena in the U.S. this year, and so that part is really exciting. Because how we do what we do. I mean, there are lots of clear out companies, and it's just kind of you can hire companies to do this, but how we do it is very different, and it is heart based and it's fast. And so we have attorneys like banks or we have accounts like banks and attorneys and CPAs and corporations that have us pack and unpack their people.
Okay. Yeah. Neat. And so I know that this is part of what you do. I'm not sure about the timing. Did the book come before the Betty Brigade, or did the Betty Brigade come before the book?
Betty Brigade was started in 2003, and then we launched the book last year. And the book became an international #1 bestseller, which was very exciting in the U.S. and Canada. And from there, it has just been blowing up. We were able to get 11 new corporate accounts last year, and I'm doing a lot of speaking and a lot of different engagements to help seniors, because the book really is a how-to. It's got a checklist in the back. We put it in 14-point font for older eyeballs, and it really is a great, here's what you can expect when you move. And this is what it means to work with an estate sale company. This is what it means to work with consignment dealers. This is how to hire a good mover. This is how to find a good real estate agent. Why do you need a trust? And how important that is, because your family really can get torn apart if your financials are not in order. So there's a lot of things that folks don't know, and they don't know them until they get to that point, and they're like, oh, holy crap. I had no idea. It's like planning a funeral. You don't plan a funeral every day, so you don't necessarily know what all the steps are. You don't know what documentation you need. You don't know what the funeral home needs, what the mortuary needs, there's a lot of different things that if you don't do it every day, it really is important to seek professional help.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's interesting because I had Stephen Garrett on the show a few weeks ago, who, of course, is all about changing our perspective on death, wanting to rebrand from death being the grim reaper to a wise old man. And if we do the planning, if we talk about it ahead of time, if we look at death as simply part of life, and it's not something to avoid like the plague, it's something to embrace as part of life, then all of this kind of planning falls within that as well. And it makes it so much easier on everyone come the day that it happens, because it's going to happen to all of us.
It is. And imagine that and this is one of the things, so if you don't have your finances, and you don't have to have a lot of money to plan out your finances, but if you don't have your financial ducks in a row, imagine what happens when you pass away and then your family has to deal with that. And almost every family has somebody in it that is that person who wants to fight. And that's where it tears families apart. And you don't expect it. You think, oh, we all get along great.
Yeah.
But then when money gets in the mix, it just, it can be very, very messy. And so here's your family. They're grieving your death. they're fighting,
Yeah.
they're trying to plan a funeral, they're trying to empty your house. Like all of those things are happening all at once. So planning this stuff and saying, hey, let's just take a step back. Here's who's going to be in charge of the money. Here's how I want the money designated.
Yeah.
And here's where I want my stuff to go. We even have an attorney that we work with that has incorporated that right in their trust document. It says, please, they mention to their clients, please hire Betty Brigade or a company like them to help clear my home. And that's part of the trust documentation. And they can even set aside money for this kind of clear out service. And I hadn't even considered that, but the attorney was like, I'm writing this in.
That's
like, okay.
neat. That's neat. What a great recommendation. I mean, if every attorney did that, it would just, again, simplify the whole process for people. And Lynn is just commenting how this is great information for everyone. And it is. Everyone has to deal with this at some point. So.
Yeah. Hey, Lynn.
So on a whole nother tangent, I mean, this started off just as an intellectual exercise of matching what you know how to do and what you're good at doing. And somehow that intellectual process became a heart process because you not only wanted to, you could see this business opportunity to help people in this way, but helping people in this way is something that's important to you, obviously.
Yeah. And so the business has always been heart-based, always. Like there has always been, how can we serve? And as we've grown, it's about how can we serve and create peace and ease around relocation. And because death, divorce, and moving are the three most stressful things.
Yeah.
And we are often dealing with somebody who has had a recent death and is moving. So we're dealing with 2 of 3.
Right.
And so that it means that our clients are pretty stressed out. So coming to them and saying, let us be your safety net. Let us guide you. Let us coach you through this process that you haven't done in 30 years. So maybe you forgot.
Yeah.
And you don't know who to call.
Yeah.
And our client is always the decision maker. It doesn't mean that we don't occasionally say, okay, you really don't need 3 desks in your new apartment. We're pretty practical, but we're also saying, and let's not get rid of that because that's actually something that's really important to you. And let's put it in a place of honor rather than putting it in a box in the basement where it's been for 25 years.
Right.
So bringing those things back into the light and putting them on the walls or on a display shelf or things like that, where folks maybe have been displaying things that aren't as important to them. So, it's really about prioritizing what is important in your life and figuring all that out and then planning your life around that.
Wow. That goes so much deeper, right? When you're looking at what really does have meaning. How many of us do things a certain way just because we've always done it the certain way and never really thought about it? I love the fact that you said we can take those things out and bring them into the light.
Yeah. And we see a lot of that. I mean, there's a reason why folks hold on to things. And if they haven't been out in the light for 25 years, then maybe they shouldn't be because sometimes they're moldy and moth-eaten and kind of gross. And sometimes they're lovely and they really should be remembered.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So speaking of being in the light, I want to talk about how your passion for helping people has also brought you into this really off the beaten path kind of world. I mean, before we came live on the show, you were showing me this beautiful crystal that you have. Yeah.
Here, there it is. It's called the Solaris. It's from Arkansas.
And
So,
it's a wonderful grounding stone that clears the energy.
mhm,
And so that's pretty far from the corporate world, looking at crystals from the earth as a way of
mhm,
clearing energy and bringing a grounding
mhm.
energy to our way of being. And yet, how much of that kind of awareness are you bringing into your work in helping people?
Well, we have to. My team has to be the kind of the coach, the quarterback, the the ringleader in getting people doing things that maybe they are not necessarily excited about doing, like going through 30 years of stuff. Um,
Yeah.
and we look at it like, well, for us, it's like archaeology. We get to know the client, we get to dig through their stuff and help them decide what's most important. That being said, there is a lot of grounding, and we have to be the people that stay calm in the center of that moving storm. And so I personally use rocks and crystals and essential oils to do that. And some of my team prays, some of my team uses other things, meditation and prayer. But everybody has their different way of. I have one team member who he loves to use humor to diffuse a situation, and that helps him. I tend to get too intense and forget to laugh. So yeah.
Good to know that about yourself.
Yeah. So everybody has their own way of approaching it, but our team members have come to us, and they have to have a service heart. They have to that has to be part of their love language, to be of service, and it has to be their first or second, in their first or second level, and yeah, but I love rocks and crystals. I think that they bring great energy, uh, and it's a fairly new passion for me.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm excited that you found that passion, because what a lot of people don't know, a lot of people have looking at the power of rocks and crystals as kind of a woo-woo thing, but there's a ton of science behind it. I
Hmm.
mean, when you think about it, quartz crystal
Hmm.
is the basis of what creates memory in our computers. It's what lights the LEDs on our clock radio. It's like
Right.
these quartz crystals, these minerals of the earth, do store memory. The whole Star Trek sci-fi thing from way back, we need the dilithium crystals to
Hmm.
power the Enterprise, was not science fiction. I mean, it's science, but not
Right.
fiction.
Right. Absolutely. And
And
and rocks and crystals do hold memory. They hold the memory of the earth, and they carry this ancient wisdom with them. And a lot of people don't think of rocks and crystals like that. Some people can feel the vibration, some people can't.
mhm.
Everybody has, some people are empathic around plants or animals. Some people are empathic around rocks and crystals, or plants or oils or whatever. So, and some people aren't empathic at all. So that's okay too.
That is okay. It takes all kinds of people to make the world go round.
It does.
Yeah. Oh, my gracious. We're already at like 29 minutes. My goodness, time goes so fast.
It
I
does.
want to put your website up here, Sharon, so that people can get a hold of you if you want to. So we're going to go
BettyBrigade.com.
www.brig, brigade.com. Boom. There it is.
There
That's
it
simple.
is. That is the simplest way to get hold of us. If you're curious about the book, there's information there. It's available on Amazon, on Kindle, and in print. And sometime in 2020, we're still trying to figure it out. We're going to be releasing an audio version, and I'm really excited about that.
Oh, that will be fantastic, because
Yeah.
there are a lot of people that may not have the time or the energy to sit down and read, but when they're traveling to and fro, they can plunk that in and listen. And yeah, brilliant, brilliant.
Absolutely. And a lot of our clients have visual issues. And so
Mhm.
um, being able to listen to it versus having to read it is helpful to them too.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, Sharon, you're providing a really awesome service to our ever-aging population and their families. And I feel like the world is privileged to have a heart-based company like yours that
Mhm.
cares about people and wants to make this whole process of having to find a new home easier and less. I mean, it's never easy to leave the place you've lived for a lot of people for like 30, 40 years, right?
Mhm.
But to make it easier and to find the gems in what they can bring forward in their new home to bring into the light in their new space
Right.
is beautiful,
Mhm.
beautiful.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So bettybrigade.com, please
Oh,
check out what Sharon has to offer. And because you're in the States and some of our viewers are in Canada, I'm sure that the book applies to people wherever you live. So
it
the
does.
information in the book can still be found. Lynn is saying, thank you for the great resource. Yes. Um, and speaking of resource, I'm just going to pop this up on the screen for our viewers. Heart and Mind Matters is an inspirational e-zine that Neil and I produce every other Tuesday morning. Inspirational article, YouTube video, quote of the week. You can subscribe at bestyoucanbe.ca. It's absolutely complimentary. And we thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much, Sharon, for sharing your wisdom and your great information with us and for sharing your heart with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was really a joy.
Beautiful. Thank you for being here. Stay tuned, everyone. We have another great show coming up later today, and of course, again next week. We just love bringing beautiful people to the world. So, again, thank you, Sharon. Ciao for now.
Bye.